The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 7, Vendémiaire, Chapter 1, Decadent. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 1, Decadent. How little did anyone suppose that here was the end not of Robespierre only, but of the revolution system itself. Least of all did the mutinying committee men suppose it, who had mutinied with no view whatever except to continue the national regeneration with their own heads on their shoulders. And yet so it verily was. The insignificant stone they had struck out, so insignificant anywhere else, proved to be the keystone. The whole archwork and edifice of Sansculottism began to loosen, to crack, to yawn, and tumbled piecemeal with considerable rapidity, plunge after plunge, till the abyss had swallowed it all, and in this upper world Sansculottism was no more. For, despicable as Robespierre himself might be, the death of Robespierre was a signal at which great multitudes of men, struck dumb with terror heretofore, rose out of their hiding-places and, as it were, saw one another how multitudinous they were, and began speaking and complaining. They are countable by the thousand and the million who have suffered cruel wrong. Ever louder rises the plaint of such a multitude, into a universal sound, into a universal continuous peal of what they call public opinion. Camille had demanded a committee of mercy and could not get it, but now the whole nation resolves itself into a committee of mercy. The nation has tried Sansculottism and is weary of it. Force of public opinion. What king or convention can withstand it? You in vain struggle. The thing that is rejected as calumnious today must pass as veracious with triumph another day. Gods and men have declared that Sansculottism cannot be. Sansculottism on that 9th night of Thermidor suicidally fractured its underjaw and lies writhing, never to rise more. Through the next 15 months it is what we may call the death agony of Sansculottism. Sansculottism, anarchy of the Jean-Jacques Evangel, having now got deep enough, is to perish in a new singular system of culottism and arrangement. For arrangement is indispensable to man. Arrangement, were it grounded only on that old primary evangel of force, with sceptre in the shape of hammer. Be there method, be there order, cry all men, were it that of the drill sergeant. More tolerable is the drilled bayonet rank than that undrilled guillotine, incalculable as the wind. How Sansculottism, writhing in death throes, strove some twice or even 3 times to get on its feet again, but fell always, and was flung re-supine the next instant, and finally breathed out the life of it and stirred no more. This we are now, from a due distance, with due brevity, to glance at. And then, O reader, courage, I see land. 2 of the first acts of the convention, very natural for it after this Thermidor, are to be specified here. The first is renewal of the governing committees. Both Sûreté Générale and Salut Public, thinned by the guillotine, need filling up. We, naturally, fill them up with Tallien, Fréron, victorious Thermidorian men. Still more to the purpose, we appoint that they shall, as law directs, not in name only, but in deed, be renewed and changed from period to period, a 4th part of them going out monthly. The convention will no more lie under bondage of committees, under terror of death, but be a free convention, free to follow its own judgment and the force of public opinion. Not less natural is it to enact that prisoners and persons under accusation shall have right to demand some writ of accusation and see clearly what they are accused of. Very natural acts, the harbingers of hundreds not less so. For now Fouquier-'s trade, shackled by writ of accusation and legal proof, is as good as gone. effectual only against Robespierre's tail. The prisons give up their suspects, emit them faster and faster. The committees see themselves besieged with prisoners' friends, complain that they are hindered in their work. It is as with men rushing out of a crowded place and obstructing one another. Turned are the tables. Prisoners pouring out in floods, jailers, moutons, and the tail of Robespierre going now whither they were wont to send. The 132 Nantes Republicans whom we saw marching in irons have arrived, shrunk to 94, the fifth man of them choked by the road. They arrive and suddenly find themselves not pleaders for life, but denouncers to death. Their trial is for acquittal and more. As the voice of a trumpet, their testimony sounds far and wide, mere atrocities of a reign of terror. For a space of 19 days, with all solemnity and publicity. Representative Carrière, company of Marat, noyadings, Loire marriages, things done in darkness, come forth into light. Clear is the voice of these poor resuscitated Nantes, and journals and speech and universal committee of mercy reverberate it loud enough into all ears and hearts. Deputation arrives from Arras, denouncing the atrocities of Representative Reborn. A tamed convention loves its own life, yet what help? Representative Reborn, Representative Carrière must wend towards the revolutionary tribunal. Struggle and delay as we will, the cry of a nation pursues them louder and louder. Them also Tinville must abolish, if indeed Tinville himself be not abolished. We must note, moreover, the decrepit condition into which a once omnipotent mother society has fallen. Legendre flung her keys on the convention table that Thermidor night. Her president was guillotined with Robespierre. The once mighty mother came some time after with a subdued countenance, begging back her keys. The keys were restored her, but the strength could not be restored her. The strength had departed forever. Alas, one's day is done. Vain that the tribune in mid-air sounds as of old. To the general ear it has become a horror and even a weariness. By and by affiliation is prohibited. The mighty mother sees herself suddenly childless, mourns as so hoarse a Rachel may. The revolutionary committees, without suspects to prey upon, perish fast, as it were of famine. In Paris the whole 48 of them are reduced to 12. Their 40 sous are abolished. Yet a little while, and revolutionary committees are no more. Maximum will be abolished. Let Sansculottism find food where it can. Neither is there now any municipality, any centre at the town hall. Mayor Fleuriot and company perished, whom we shall not be in haste to replace. The town hall remains in a broken, submissive state, knows not well what it is growing to, knows only that it is grown weak and must obey. What if we should split Paris into, say, a dozen separate municipalities, incapable of concert? The sections were thus rendered safe to act with, or indeed might not the sections themselves be abolished? You had then merely your 12 manageable Pacific townships without centre or subdivision, and sacred right of insurrection fell into abeyance. So much is getting abolished, fleeting swiftly into the inane. For the press speaks, and the human tongue, journals heavy and light, in philippic and burlesque, a renegade Fréron, a renegade Prudhomme, loud they as ever, only the contrary way. And ci-devant show themselves, almost parade themselves, resuscitated as from death-sleep, publish what death pains they have had. The very frogs of the marsh croak with emphasis. Your protesting 73 shall, with a struggle, be omitted out of prison, back to their seats. Your Louvets, Inas, Lanjuinais, and wrecks of Girondism, recalled from their haylofts and caves in Switzerland, will resume their places in the Convention, natural foes of terror. Thermidorian Tallien and mere foes of terror rule in this Convention and out of it. The compressed mountain shrinks silent more and more. Moderatism rises louder and louder, not as a tempest with threatenings, say, rather, as the rushing of a mighty organ blast and melodious deafening force of public opinion from the 25 million windpipes of a nation all in committee of mercy, which how shall any detached body of individuals withstand? End of Book 7, Chapter 1. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 7, Vendémiaire, Chapter 2, La Cabarrue. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 2, La Cabarrue. How, above all, shall a poor national convention withstand it? In this poor national convention, broken, bewildered by long terror, perturbations, and guillotinement, there is no pilot, there is not even a Danton who could undertake to steer you anywhither in such press of weather. The utmost a bewildered convention can do is to veer and trim and try to keep itself steady and rush undrowned before the wind. Needless to struggle, to fling helm a lee and make 'bout ship. A bewildered convention sails not in the teeth of the wind, but is rapidly blown round again. So strong is the wind, we say, and so changed, blowing fresher and fresher as from the sweet south-west, your devastating north-easters and wild tornado gusts of terror blown utterly out. All sanscalotic things are passing away, all things are becoming calotic. Do but look at the cut of clothes, that light visible result, significant of 1,000 things which are not so visible. In winter 1793, men went in red nightcaps, municipals themselves in sabots. The very citoyens had to petition against such headgear. But now, in this winter 1794, where is the red nightcap? With the thing beyond the flood. Your moneyed citoyen ponders in what elegantest style he shall dress himself, whether he shall not even dress himself as the free peoples of antiquity. The more adventurous citoyenne has already done it. Behold her, that beautiful adventurous citoyenne, in costume of the ancient Greeks, such Greek as painted David could teach, her sweeping tresses snooded by glittering antique fillet, bright-eyed tunic of the Greek women, her little feet naked as in antique statues, with mere sandals and winding strings of riband, defying the frost. There is such an effervescence of luxury. For your emigrant ci-devants carried not their mansions and furniture out of the country with them, but left them standing here, and in the swift changes of property, what with money coined on the Place de la Révolution, what with army furnishings, sales of emigrant domain and church lands and king's lands, and then with the Aladdin's lamp of agio in a time of paper money, such mansions have found new occupants. Old wine, drawn from ci-devant bottles, descends new throats. Paris has swept herself, relighted herself. Salons, supers not fraternal, beam once more with suitable effulgence, very singular in colour. The fair Cabarrue is come out of prison, wedded to her red gloomy Dis, whom they say she treats too loftily. Fair Cabarrue gives the most brilliant soirees. Round her is gathered a new republican army of citoyennes in sandals, ci-devant or other, what remnants soever of the old grace survive, are rallied there. At her right hand in this cause labours fair Josephine, the widow Beauharnais, though in straitened circumstances, intent, both of them, to blandish down the grimness of republican austerity, and re-civilize mankind. Re-civilize, as of old they were civilized, by witchery of the Orphic fiddle bow and Euterpian rhythm, by the graces, by the smiles. Thermidorian deputies are there in those soirees, Editor Fréron, orateur de peuple, Barras, who has known other dances than the Carmagnole. Grim generals of the Republic are there, in enormous horse-collar neckcloth, good against sabre-cuts, the hair gathered all into one knot, flowing down behind, fixed with a comb. Among which latter do we not recognise once more the little bronzed-complexioned artillery officer of Toulon, home from the Italian wars? Grim enough, of lean, almost cruel aspect, for he has been in trouble, in ill health, also in ill favour as a man promoted, deservingly or not, by the terrorists and Robespierre Junior. But does not Barras know him? Will not Barras speak a word for him? Yes, if at any time it will serve Barras so to do. Somewhat forlorn of fortune for the present stands that artillery officer, looks with those deep earnest eyes of his into a future as waste as the most. Taciturn, yet with the strangest utterances in him, if you awaken him, which smite home like light or lightning. On the whole, rather dangerous? A dissociable man? Dissociable enough, a natural terror and horror to all phantasms, being himself of the genus reality. He stands here, without work or outlook, in this forsaken manner, glances nevertheless, it would seem, at the kind glance of Josephine Beauharnais, and for the rest with severe countenance, with open eyes and closed lips, waits what will betide. That the balls, therefore, have a new figure this winter, we can see. Not Carmagnoles, rude whirl-blasts of rage, as Mercier called them, precursors of storm and destruction. No, soft Ionic motions, fit for the light sandal and antique Grecian tunic. Efflorescence of luxury has come out, for men have wealth. Nay, you got wealth, and under the terror you durst not dance except in rags. Among the innumerable kinds of balls, let the hasty reader mark only this single one, the kind they call victim balls, bals à victimes. The dancers, in choice costume, have all crape round the left arm. To be admitted, it needs that you be a victime, that you have lost a relative under the terror. Peace to the dead. Let us dance to their memory, for in all ways one must dance. It is very remarkable, according to Mercier, under what varieties of figure this great business of dancing goes on. The women, says he, are nymphs, sultanas, sometimes Minervas, Junos, even Dianas. In light unerring gyrations they swim there with such earnestness of purpose, with perfect silence, so absorbed are they. What is singular, continues he, the onlookers are as it were mingled with the dancers, form as it were a circumambient element round the different contra-dancers, yet without deranging them. It is rare, in fact, that a sultana in such circumstances experience the smallest collision. Her pretty foot darts down an inch from mine, she is off again, she is as a flash of light, but soon the measure recalls her to the point she set out from. Like a glittering comet she travels her eclipse, revolving on herself as by double effect of gravitation and attraction. Looking forward a little way into time, the same Mercier discerns merveilleuses in flesh-coloured drawers with gold circlets, mere dancing houris of an artificial Mahomet's paradise, much too Mohammedan. Montgaillard, with his splenetic eye, notes a no less strange thing, that every fashionable citoyenne you meet is in an interesting situation. Good heavens, every? Mere pillows and stuffing, adds the acrid man, such in a time of depopulation by war and guillotine being the fashion. No further seek its merits to disclose. Behold also, instead of the old grim tapdours of Robespierre, what new street groups are these? Young men habited not in black shag Carmagnole Spencer, but in superfine habit carré or Spencer with rectangular tail appended to it, square-tailed coat with elegant anti-guillotinish specialty of collar, the hair plaited at the temples and knotted back, long flowing in military wise. Young men of what they call the muscadin or dandy species. Fréron in his fondness names them jeunesse dorée, golden or gilt youth. They have come out, these gilt youths, in a kind of resuscitated state. They wear crape round the left arm, such of them as were victims. More, they carry clubs loaded with lead. In an angry manner, any tapdour or remnant of Jacobinism they may fall out with shall fare the worse. They have suffered much, their friends guillotined, their pleasures, frolics, superfine collars ruthlessly repressed. Where now the base red nightcaps who did it? Fair Cabarrou and the army of Greek sandals smile approval. In the Théâtre Feydeau, young Valour in square-tailed coat eyes beauty in Greek sandals and kindles by her glances. Down with Jacobinism. No Jacobin hymn or demonstration, only Thermidorian ones shall be permitted here. We beat down Jacobinism with clubs loaded with lead. But let anyone who has examined the dandy nature, how petulant it is, especially in the gregarious state, think what an element in sacred rite of insurrection this gilt youth was. Broils and battery, war without truce or measure. Hateful is sansculottism as death and night. For indeed, is not the dandy calotic habilitary, by law of existence, a cloth animal, one that lives, moves, and has his being in cloth? So goes it, waltzing, bickering, fair Cabarrou by Orphic witchery struggling to re-civilize mankind. Not unsuccessfully, we hear. What utmost republican grimness can resist Greek sandals in ionic motion, the very toes covered with gold rings? By degrees the indisputablest new politeness rises, grows with vigour. And yet, whether even to this day that inexpressible tone of society known under the old kings, when sin had lost all its deformity, with or without advantage to us, and airy nothing had obtained such a local habitation and establishment as she never had, be recovered? Or even whether it be not lost beyond recovery? Either way, the world must contrive to struggle on. End of Book 7, Chapter 2. The French Revolution, A History by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 7, Vendémiaire, Chapter 3, Quiberon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 3, Quiberon. But indeed do not these long flowing hair queues of a jeunesse dorée in semi-military costume betoken, unconsciously, another still more important tendency? The Republic, abhorrent of her guillotine, loves her army. And with cause. For surely, if good fighting be a kind of honour, as it is in its season, and be with the vulgar of men even the chief kind of honour, then here is good fighting, in good season, if there ever was. These sons of the Republic, they rose in mad wrath to deliver her from slavery in Samaria. And have they not done it? Through maritime Alps, through gorges of Pyrenees, through low countries, northward along the Rhine valley, far is Samaria hurled back from the sacred motherland. Fierce as fire, they have carried her tricolour over the faces of all her enemies, over scarped heights, over cannon batteries, down as with the Vengeur into the dead deep sea. She has 1,100,000 fighters on foot, this Republic. At one particular moment she had, or supposed she had, 1,700,000. Like a ring of lightning, they, volleying and sa-erraring, begirdle her from shore to shore. Sumerian coalition of despots recoils, smitten with astonishment and strange pangs. Such a fire is in these Gaelic republican men, high-blazing, which no coalition can withstand. Not scutcheons with 4 degrees of nobility, but ci-devant sergeants who have had to clutch generalship out of the cannon's throat. A Pichegru, a Jourdain, a Hoche lead them on. They have bread, they have iron. With bread and iron you can get to China. See Pichegru's soldiers this hard winter in their looped and windowed destitution, in their straw-rope shoes and cloaks of bass mat, how they overrun Holland like a demon host, the ice having bridged all waters, and rush shouting from victory to victory. Ships in the Texel are taken by hussars on horseback. Fled is York, fled is the stadtholder, glad to escape to England and leave Holland to fraternise. Such a Gaelic fire, we say, blazes in this people, like the conflagration of grass and dry jungle, which no mortal can withstand, for the moment. And even so it will blaze and run, scorching all things, and from Cadiz to Archangel, mad sansculottism, drilled now into soldiership, led on by some armed soldier of democracy, say that monosyllabic artillery officer, will set its foot cruelly on the neck of its enemies, and its shouting and their shrieking shall fill the world. Rash coalized king, such a fire ye have kindled, yourselves fireless, your fighters animated only by drill sergeants, messroom moralities, and the drummer's cat. However, it is begun, and will not end, not for a matter of 20 years. So long this Gaelic fire, through its successive changes of colour and character, will blaze over the face of Europe, and afflict and scorch all men, till it provoke all men, till it kindle another kind of fire, the Teutonic kind, namely, and be swallowed up, so to speak, in a day. For there is a fire comparable to the burning of dry jungle and grass, most sudden, high blazing, and another fire which we liken to the burning of coal, or even of anthracite coal, difficult to kindle, but then which nothing will put out. The ready Gaelic fire we can remark further, and remark not in Pichegru only, but in innumerable Voltaire, Racine, Laplace, no less for a man whether he fight or sing or think, will remain the same unity of a man, is admirable for roasting eggs in every conceivable sense. The Teutonic anthracite, again, as we see in Luther's, Leibniz's, Shakespeare's, is preferable for smelting metals. How happy is our Europe that has both kinds! But, be this as it may, the Republic is clearly triumphing. In the spring of the year, Metz town again sees itself besieged, will again change master. Did not Merlin the Thionviller, with wild beard and look, say it was not for the last time they saw him there? The Elector of Metz circulates amongst his brother potentates this pertinent query: were it not advisable to treat of peace? Yes, answered many an Elector from the bottom of his heart. But on the other hand, Austria hesitates, finally refuses, being subsidied by Pitt. As for Pitt, whoever hesitate, he, suspending his habeas corpus, suspending his cash payments, stands inflexible, spite of foreign reverses, spite of domestic obstacles, of Scotch national conventions and English friends of the people, whom he is obliged to arraign, to hang, or even to see acquitted with jubilee, a lean, inflexible man. The majesty of Spain, as we predicted, makes peace, also the majesty of Prussia, and there is a treaty of Bâle. Treaty with black anarchists and regicides. Alas, what help! You cannot hang this anarchy. It is like to hang you. You must needs treat with it. Likewise, General Hoche has even succeeded in pacificating La Vendée. Rogue Rossignol and his infernal columns have vanished. By firmness and justice, by sagacity and industry, General Hoche has done it. Taking movable columns, not infernal, girdling in the country, pardoning the submissive, cutting down the resistive, limb after limb of the revolt is brought under. La Roche-Jacqueline, last of our nobles, fell in battle. Stofflet himself makes terms. Georges Cadoudal is back to Brittany among his Chouans. The frightful gangrene of La Vendée seems veritably extirpated. It has cost, as they reckon in round numbers, the lives of 100,000 fellow mortals, with noyadings, conflagratings by infernal column, which defy arithmetic. This is the La Vendée War. Nay, in few months it does burst up once more, but once only, blown upon by Pitt, by our ci-devant Puiset of Calvados and others. In the month of July 1795, English ships will ride in Quiberon roads. There will be debarkation of chivalrous ci-devant, of volunteer prisoners of war eager to desert, of firearms, proclamations, clothes chests, royalists and specie, whereupon also on the Republican side there will be rapid stand to arms, with ambuscade marchings by Quiberon beach at midnight, storming of Fort Penthièvre, war thunder mingling with the roar of the nightly main, and such a morning light as has seldom dawned, debarkation hurled back into its boats or into the devouring billows with wreck and wail. In one word, a ci-devant Puiset as totally ineffectual here as he was in Calvados when he rode from Vernon Castle without boots. Again, therefore, it has cost the lives of many a brave man, among whom the whole world laments the brave son of Sombreuil. Ill-fated family. The father and the younger son went to the guillotine. The heroic daughter languishes, reduced to want, hides her woes from history. The elder son perishes here, shot by military tribunal as an emigrant. Hoche himself cannot save him. If all wars, civil and other, are misunderstandings, what a thing must right understanding be? End of Book 7, Chapter 3. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 7, Vendémiaire, Chapter 4, Lion Not Dead. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 4, Lion Not Dead. The Convention, borne on the tide of fortune towards foreign victory, and driven by the strong wind of public opinion towards clemency and luxury, is rushing fast. All skill of pilotage is needed, and more than all in such a velocity. Curious to see how we veer and whirl, yet must ever whirl round again and scud before the wind. If on the one hand we readmit the protesting 73, we on the other hand agree to consummate the apotheosis of Marat, lift his body from the Cordeliers church and transport it to the pantheon of great men, flinging out Mirabeau to make room for him. To no purpose, so strong blows public opinion. A gilt youthhood in plaited hair-tresses tears down his bust from the Théâtre Feydeau, tramples them underfoot, scatters them with vociferation into the cesspool of Montmartre. Swept is his chapel from the Place du Carrousel. The cesspool of Montmartre will receive his very dust. Shorter godhood had no divine man. Some 4 months in this pantheon, temple of all the immortals, then to the cesspool, grand cloaca of Paris and the world. His bust at one time amounted to 4,000. Between temple of all the immortals and cloaca of the world, how are poor human creatures whirled? Furthermore, the question arises, when will the Constitution of 1793, come into action? Considerate heads surmise in all privacy that the Constitution of 93 will never come into action. Let them busy themselves to get ready a better. Or again, where now are the Jacobins? Childless, most decrepit as we saw, sat the mighty mother, gnashing not teeth but empty gums against a traitorous Thermidorian convention and the current of things. Twice were Billaud, Collot, and company accused in convention by Lecointre, by Legendre, and the second time it was not voted calumnious. Billaud from the Jacobin Tribune says, "The lion is not dead, he is only sleeping." They ask him in convention what he means by the awakening of the lion. And bickerings of an extensive sort arose in the Palais Égalité between Tapdure and the gilt youthhood, cries of "Down with the Jacobins, the Jacques-Coquin," Coquin meaning scoundrel. The Tribune in mid-air gave battle sound, answered only by silence and uncertain gasps. Talk was in government committees of suspending the Jacobin sessions. Hark, there! It is in All Hallows time, or on the Hallow Eve itself, month ci devant November, year once named of grace, 1794. Sad eve for Jacobinism. Volley of stones dashing through our windows with jingle and execration. The female Jacobins, famed tricoteuses with knitting needles, take flight, are met at the doors by a gilt youthhood and mob of 4,000 persons, are hooted, flouted, hustled, fustigated in a scandalous manner, cotillons retroussés, and vanish in mere hysterics. Sally out, ye male Jacobins! The male Jacobins sally out, but only to battle, disaster, and confusion, so that armed authority has to intervene, and again on the morrow to intervene, and suspend the Jacobin sessions for ever and a day. Gone are the Jacobins, into invisibility, in a storm of laughter and howls. Their place is made a normal school, the first of the kind seen. It then vanishes into a market of Thermidor Ninth, into a market of St. Tenore, where is now peaceable chaffering for poultry and greens. The solemn temples, the great globe itself, the baseless fabric. Are not we such stuff, we in this world of ours, as dreams are made of? Maximum being abrogated, trade was to take its own free course. Alas, trade, shackled, topsy-turvied in the way we saw, and now suddenly let go again, can for the present take no course at all, but only reel and stagger. There is, so to speak, no trade whatever for the time being. Assignats, long sinking, emitted in such quantities, sink now with an alacrity beyond parallel. "Combien?" said one to a hackney coachman. "What fare?" 6,000 livres, answered he, some £300 sterling in paper money. Pressure of maximum withdrawn, the things it compressed likewise withdraw. 2 ounces of bread per day in the modicum allotted, wide-waving, doleful are the bakers' queues. Farmers' houses are becoming pawnbrokers' shops. One can imagine in these circumstances with what humour sansculottism growled in its throat. La Carbaroux beheld ci-devant return dancing, the Thermidor effulgence of re-civilization, and balls in flesh-coloured drawers. Greek tunics and sandals, hosts of muscadins parading with their clubs loaded with lead, and we here cast out, abhorred, picking offal from the street, agitating in baker's queue for our 2 ounces of bread. Will the Jacobin lion, which they say is meeting secretly at the Archevêche in bonnet rouge with loaded pistols, not awaken? Seemingly not. Our Collot, our Biot, Barrère, Vadière, in these last days of March 1795, are found worthy of deportation, of banishment beyond seas, and shall for the present be trundled off to the castle of Ham. The lion is dead, or writhing in death throes. Behold, accordingly, on the day they call 12th of Germinal, which is also called 1st of April, not a lucky day, how lively are these streets of Paris once more! Floods of hungry women, of squalid hungry men, ejaculating, "Bread, bread, and the Constitution of '93!" Paris has risen, once again, like the ocean tide, is flowing towards the Tuileries for bread and a Constitution. Tuileries sentries do their best, but it serves not. The ocean tide sweeps them away, inundates the Convention Hall itself, howling, "Bread and the Constitution!" Unhappy senators, unhappy people, there is yet, after all toils and broils, no bread, no Constitution. Du pain, pas tant de longs discours, bread, not bursts of parliamentary eloquence, so wailed the maenads of my yard 5 years ago and more, so wail ye to this hour. The Convention, with unalterable countenance, with what thought one knows not, keeps its seat in this waste-howling chaos, rings its storm-bell from the pavilion of unity, section Le Pelletier, old Filles Saint-Thomas, who are of the money-changing species. These and gilt youthhood fly to the rescue, sweep chaos forth again with levelled bayonets. Paris is declared in a state of siege. Pichegru, conqueror of Holland, who happens to be here, is named commandant till the disturbance end. He, in one day, so to speak, ends it. He accomplishes the transfer of Biot, Collot and company, dissipating all opposition by 2 cannon shots, blank cannon shots, and the terror of his name, and thereupon announcing, with a laconicism which should be imitated, "Representatives, your decrees are executed," lays down his commandantship. This revolt of Germinal, therefore, has passed like a vain cry. The prisoners rest safe in Ham, waiting for ships. Some 900 chief terrorists of Paris are disarmed. Sansculottism, swept forth with bayonets, has vanished with its misery to the bottom of Saint Antoine and Saint Marceau. Time was when Usher Maillard with Maenades could alter the course of legislation, but that time is not. Legislation seems to have got bayonets. Section Le Pelletier takes its firelock, not for us. We retire to our dark dens. Our cry of hunger is called a plot of pit. The saloons glitter. The flesh-coloured drawers gyrate as before. It was for the Cabarrus, then, and her muscadins and money-changers that we fought. It was for bowls in flesh-coloured drawers that we took feudalism by the beard and did and dared, shedding our blood like water. Expressive silence, muse thou their praise. End of Book 7, Chapter 4. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 7, Vendémiaire, Chapter 5, Lion Sprawling its Last. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 5. Lion Sprawling its Last. Representative Carrier went to the guillotine in December last, protesting that he acted by orders. The Revolutionary Tribunal, after all it has devoured, has now only, as anarchic things do, to devour itself. In the early days of May, men see a remarkable thing. Fouquier-Tinville pleading at the bar once his own. He and his chief juryman, Loire, August 10th, juryman Villat, a batch of 16, pleading hard, protesting that they acted by orders, but pleading in vain. Thus men break the axe with which they have done hateful things, the axe itself having grown hateful. For the rest, Fouquier died hard enough. "Where are thy batches?" howled the people. "Hungry canaille," asked Fouquier, "is thy bread cheaper, wanting them?" Remarkable Fouquier, once but as other attorneys and law-beagles which hunt ravenous on this earth, a well-known phasis of human nature, and now thou art and remainest the most remarkable attorney that ever lived and hunted in the upper air. For in this terrestrial course of time there was to be an avatar of attorneyism. The heavens had said, "Let there be an incarnation, not divine, of the venatory attorney spirit which keeps its eye on the bond only." And lo, this was it, and they have attorneyed it in its turn. Vanish then, thou rat-eyed incarnation of attorneyism, who at bottom wert but as other attorneys and 2 hungry sons of Adam. Juryman Villat had striven hard for life, and published from his prison an ingenious book not unknown to us, but it would not stead. He also had to vanish, and this his book of the secret causes of Thermidor, full of lies, with particles of truth in it undiscoverable otherwise, is all that remains of him. Revolutionary Tribunal has done, but vengeance has not done. Representative Le Bon, after long struggling, is handed over to the ordinary law courts, and by them guillotined. Nay, at Lyons and elsewhere, resuscitated moderatism in its vengeance will not wait the slow process of law, but bursts into the prisons, sets fire to the prisons, burns some 80 imprisoned Jacobins to dire death, or chokes them with the smoke of straw. There go vengeful, truculent companies of Jesus, companies of the Son, slaying Jacobinism wherever they meet with it, flinging it into the Rhone stream, which once more bears seaward a horrid cargo. Whereupon at Toulon Jacobinism rises in revolt and is like to hang the national representatives. With such action and reaction, is not a poor national convention hard bested? It is like the settlement of winds and waters, of seas long tornado beaten, and goes on with jumble and with jangle. Now flung aloft, now sunk in trough of the sea, your vessel of the Republic has need of all pilotage and more. What parliament that ever sat under the moon had such a series of destinies as this National Convention of France? It came together to make the Constitution, and instead of that it has had to make nothing but destruction and confusion, to burn up Catholicisms, aristocratisms, to worship reason and dig saltpetre, to fight titanically with itself and with the whole world. A convention decimated by the guillotine, above the 10th man has bowed his neck to the axe, which has seen carmagnoles danced before it, and patriotic strophes sung amid church spoils, the wounded of the 10th of August defile in hand-barrows, and in the pandemonial midnight Egalité's dames of tricolour drink lemonade, and spectrum of Sieyes mount, saying, "Death sans phrase." A convention which has effervesced and which has congealed, which has been red with rage and also pale with rage, sitting with pistols in its pocket, drawing sword in a moment of effervescence, now storming to the four winds through a Danton voice, "Awake, O France, and smite the tyrants," now frozen mute under its Robespierre, and answering his dirge voice by a dubious gasp. Assassinated, decimated, stabbed at, shot at, in baths, on streets and staircases, which has been the nucleus of chaos. Has it not heard the chimes at midnight? It has deliberated, beset by 100,000 armed men with artillery furnaces and provision carts. It has been betocsined, bestormed, overflooded by black deluges of sansculottism, and has heard the shrill cry, "Bread and soap!" Or, as we say, it's the nucleus of chaos. It sat as the centre of sansculottism, and had spread its pavilion on the waist deep, where is neither path nor landmark, neither bottom nor shore. In intrinsic valour, ingenuity, fidelity, and general force and manhood, it has perhaps not far surpassed the average of parliaments, but in frankness of purpose, in singularity of position, it seeks its fellow. One other sansculotic submersion, or at most two, and this wearied vessel of a convention reaches land. Revolt of Germinal 12th ended as a vain cry. Moribund sansculottism was swept back into invisibility. There it has lain moaning these 6 weeks, moaning and also scheming. Jacobins disarmed, flung forth from their tribune in mid-air, must needs try to help themselves in secret conclave underground. Though, therefore, on the first day of the month prairial, 20th of May, 1795, sound of the General once more, beating sharp, rin-tin, "To arms! To arms!" Sansculottism has risen, yet again, from its death lair, waste wild flowing as the unfruitful sea. Saint Antoine is afoot. "Bread and the Constitution of '93, so sounds it, so stands it written with chalk on the hats of men. They have their pikes, their firelocks, paper of grievances, standards, printed proclamation, drawn up in quite official manner, considering this and also considering that they, a much enduring sovereign people, are in insurrection, will have bread and the Constitution of '93. And so the barriers are seized, and the General beats, and the tocsins discourse discord. Black deluges overflow the Tuileries. Spite of sentries, the sanctuary itself is invaded. Enter to our order of the day a torrent of dishevelled women wailing, "Bread! Bread!" President may well cover himself and have his own tocsin rung in the Pavilion of Unity. The ship of the state again labours and leaks, overwashed, near to swamping, with unfruitful brine. What a day once more! Women are driven out, men storm irresistibly in, choke all corridors, thunder at all gates. Deputies putting forth head, obtest, conjure. Saint-Antoine rages, bread and constitution. Report has risen that the convention is assassinating the women. Crushing and rushing, clangor and furor. The oak doors have become as oak tambourines sounding under the axe of Saint-Antoine. Plasterwork crackles, woodwork booms and jingles. Doors start up. Bursts in Saint-Antoine with frenzy and vociferation. Rag standards, printed proclamation, drum music, astonishment to eye and ear. Gendarmes, loyal sectioners, charge through the other door. They are recharged, musketry exploding. Saint-Antoine cannot be expelled. Obtesting deputies obtest vainly. Respect the President! Approach not the President! Deputy Férot, stretching out his hands, bearing his bosom scarred in the Spanish wars, obtests vainly, threatens and resists vainly. Rebellious deputy of the sovereign, if thou have fought, have not we too? We have no bread, no constitution. They wrench poor Férot, they tumble him, trample him, wrath waxing to see itself work. They drag him into the corridor, dead or near it, sever his head, and fix it on a pike. Ah, did an unexampled convention want this variety of destiny too, then? Férot's bloody head goes on a pike. Such a game has begun. Paris and the earth may wait how it will end. And so it billows free through all corridors within and without, far as the eye reaches, nothing but bedlam and the great deep broken loose. President Boissy Danglars sits like a rock. The rest of the convention is floated to the upper benches, sectioners and gendarmes still ranking there to form a kind of wall for them. And insurrection rages, rolls its drums, will read its paper of grievances, will have this decreed, will have that. Covered sits President Boissy, unyielding, like a rock in the beating of seas. They menace him, level muskets at him. He yields not. They hold up Férot's bloody head to him. With grave, stern air he bows to it, and yields not. And the paper of grievances cannot get itself read for uproar, and the drums roll, and the throats bawl, and insurrection, like sphere music, is inaudible for very noise. Decree us this, decree us that. One man we discern bawling for the space of an hour at all intervals, Je demande l'arrestation des coquins et des lâches. Really one of the most comprehensive petitions ever put up, which indeed to this hour includes all that you can reasonably ask Constitution of the Year 1, rotten borough, ballot box, or other miraculous political ark of the covenant to do for you to the end of the world. I also demand arrestment of the knaves and dastards, and nothing more whatever. National representation, deluged with black sansculottism, glides out, for help elsewhere, for safety elsewhere. Here is no help. About 4 in the afternoon there remain hardly more than some 60 members, mere friends or even secret leaders, a remnant of the mountain crest, held in silence by Thermidorian thraldom. Now is the time for them, now or never let them descend and speak. They descend, these 60, invited by sansculottism. Rome of the new calendar, rule of the sacred file, Goujon, Duskenoy, Soubrani, and the rest. Glad sansculottism forms a ring for them. Rome takes the president's chair. They begin resolving and decreeing. Fast enough now comes decree after decree in alternate brief strains or strophe and antistrophe. What will cheapen bread? What will awaken the dormant lion? And at every new decree sansculottism shouts, "Decreed! Decreed!" and rolls its drums. Fast enough, the work of months in hours, when, see, a figure enters, whom in the lamplight we recognize to be Legendre, and utters words fit to be hissed out. And then see, Section Le Pelletier or other Muscadan section enters, and gilt youth with levelled bayonets, countenances screwed to the sticking place. Tramp, tramp, with bayonets gleaming in the lamplight. What can one do, worn down with long riot, grown heartless, dark, hungry, but roll back, but rush back, and escape who can? The very windows need to be thrown up, that Sansculottism may escape fast enough. Money changer sections and gilt youth sweep them forth with steel besom far into the depths of Saint Antoine. Triumph once more. The decrees of that 60 are not so much as rescinded, they are declared null and non-extant. Rom, Rule, Goujon, and the ringleaders, some 13 in all, are decreed accused. Permanent session ends at 3 in the morning. Sansculottism, once more flung resupine, lies sprawling its last. Such was the first of Prairial, 20th of May, 1795. Second and third of Prairial, during which Sansculottism still sprawled and unexpectedly rang its tocsin and assembled in arms, availed Sansculottism nothing. What though with our Roms and Rules, accused but not yet arrested, we make a new true national convention of our own over in the East, and put the others out of law? What though we rank in arms and march, armed force and musket in sections, some 30,000 men, environ that old false convention? We can but bully one another, banding nicknames, muscadins against blood-drinkers, buveurs de sang. Pharaoh's assassin, taken with the red hand and sentenced and now near to guillotine and plus the grave, is retaken, is carried back into Saint Antoine to no purpose. Convention sectionaries and gilt youth come, according to decree, to seek him, nay, to disarm Saint Antoine. And they do disarm it, by rolling of cannon, by springing upon enemies' cannon, by military audacity and terror of the law. Saint Antoine surrenders its arms, Santerre even advising it, anxious for life and brewhouse. Pharaoh's assassin flings himself from a high roof, and all is lost. Discerning which things, old Rule shot a pistol through his old white head, dashed his life in pieces, as he had done the sacred file of Rheims. Rom, Goujon, and the others stand ranked before a swiftly appointed, swift military tribunal. Hearing the sentence, Goujon drew a knife, struck it into his breast, passed it to his neighbour Rom, and fell dead. Rom did the like, and another all but did it, Roman death rushing on there as in electric chain before your bailiffs could intervene. The guillotine had the rest. They were the ultimi Romanorum. Biot, Collot, and company are now ordered to be tried for life, but are found to be already off, shipped for Sinnamary and the hot mud of Suriname. There let Biot surround himself with flocks of tame parrots, Collot take the yellow fever, and drinking a whole bottle of brandy, burn up his entrails. Sansculottism sprawls no more. The dormant lion has become a dead one, and now, as we see, any hoof may smite him. End of Book 7, Chapter 5. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine. Book 7, Vendémiaire, Chapter 6, Grilled Herrings. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 6, Grilled Herrings. So dies Sansculottism, the body of Sansculottism, or is changed. Its ragged, Pythian, Carmagnole dance has transformed itself into a Pyrrhic, into a dance of cabaret balls. Sansculottism is dead, extinguished by new isms of that kind which were its own natural progeny, and is buried, we may say, with such deafening jubilation and disharmony of funeral knell on their part, that only after some half-century or so does one begin to learn clearly why it ever was alive. And yet a meaning lay in it. Sansculottism verily was alive, a new birth of time. Nay, it still lives, and is not dead, but changed. The soul of it still lives, still works far and wide, through one bodily shape into another less amorphous, as is the way of cunning Time with his new births, till in some perfected shape it embrace the whole circuit of the world. For the wise man may now everywhere discern that he must found on his manhood, not on the garniture of his manhood. He who, in these epochs of our Europe, founds on garniture, formulas, collotisms of what sort soever, is founding on old cloth and sheepskin, and cannot endure. But as for the body of Sansculottism, that is dead and buried, and one hopes need not reappear, in primary amorphous shape, for another 1,000 years. It was the frightfulest thing ever born of time? One of the frightfulest. This convention, now grown anti-Jacobin, did, with an eye to justify and fortify itself, publish lists of what the Reign of Terror had perpetrated, lists of persons guillotined. The lists, cries splenetic Abbé Montgaillard, were not complete. They contained the names of how many persons, thinks the reader? 2,000, all but a few. There were above 4,000, cries Montgaillard. So many were guillotined, fusilladed, noyaded, done to dire death, of whom 900 were women. It is a horrible sum of human lives, Monsieur l'Abbé. Some 10 times as many shot rightly on a field of battle, and one might have had his glorious victory with Te Deum. It is not far from the 200th part of what perished in the entire 7 Years' War. By which 7 Years' War did not the great Fritz wrench Silesia from the great Teresa, and a Pompadour, stung by epigrams, satisfy herself that she could not be an Agnes Sorel? The head of man is a strange vacant sounding shell, Monsieur l'Abbé, and studies cocker to small purpose. But what if history, somewhere on this planet, were to hear of a nation, the third soul of whom had not for 30 weeks each year as many third-rate potatoes as would sustain him? History in that case feels bound to consider that starvation is starvation, that starvation from age to age presupposes much. History ventures to assert that the French sans-culotte of '93, who, roused from long death-sleep, could rush at once to the frontiers and die fighting for an immortal hope and faith of deliverance for him and his, was but the second miserablest of men. The Irish sans-potato, had he not senses then, nay, a soul? In his frozen darkness it was bitter for him to die famishing, bitter to see his children famish. It was bitter for him to be a beggar, a liar, and a knave. Nay, if that dreary Greenland wind of benighted want, perennial from sire to son, had frozen him into a kind of torpor and numb callosity, so that he saw not, felt not, was not, for a creature with a soul in it, some assuagement, or the cruellest wretchedness of all. Such things were, such things are, and they go on in silence, peaceably, and sans-culottisms follow them. History, looking back over this France through long times, back to Turgot's time, for instance, when dumb drudgery staggered up to its king's palace, and in wide expanse of sallow faces, squalor and winged raggedness presented hieroglyphically its petition of grievances, and for answer got hanged on a new gallows 40 feet high, confesses mournfully that there is no period to be met with in which the general 25 millions of France suffered less than in this period which they name Reign of Terror. But it was not the dumb millions that suffered here, it was the speaking thousands and hundreds and units who shrieked and published and made the world ring with their wail as they could and should. That is the grand peculiarity. The frightfulest births of time are never the loud-speaking ones, for these soon die. They are the silent ones which can live from century to century. Anarchy, hateful as death, is abhorrent to the whole nature of man, and must itself soon die. Wherefore let all men know what of depth and of height is still revealed in man, and with fear and wonder, with just sympathy and just antipathy, with clear eye and open heart, contemplate it and appropriate it, and draw innumerable inferences from it. This inference, for example, among the first, that if the gods of this lower world will sit on their glittering thrones, indolent as Epicurus' as gods, with a living chaos of ignorance and hunger weltering uncared for at their feet, and smooth parasites preaching peace, peace, when there is no peace, then the dark chaos, it would seem, will rise, has risen, and, oh heavens, has it not tanned their skins into breeches for itself? That there be no second sansculottism in our earth for 1,000 years, let us understand well what the first was, and let rich and poor of us go and do otherwise. But to our tale. The muscadine sections greatly rejoice, Carbaroo balls gyrate, the well-nigh insoluble problem, republic without anarchy, have we not solved it? Law of fraternity or death is gone, chimerical, obtain who need, has become practical, hold who have. To anarchic republic of the poverties there has succeeded orderly republic of the luxuries, which will continue as long as it can. On the Pont au Change, on the Place de Grève, in long sheds, Mercier in these summer evenings saw working men at their repast. One's allotment of daily bread has sunk to 1.5 ounces. Plates containing each 3 grilled herrings, sprinkled with shorn onions, wetted with a little vinegar. To this add some morsel of boiled prunes and lentils swimming in a clear sauce. At these frugal tables, the cook's gridiron hissing nearby, and the pot simmering on a fire between 2 stones, I have seen them ranged by the 100, consuming without bread their scant messes, far too moderate for the keenness of their appetite and the extent of their stomach. Sane water rushing plenteous by will supply the deficiency. O man of toil! Thy struggling and thy daring, these 6 long years of insurrection and tribulation, thou hast profited nothing by it then? Thou consumest thy herring and water in the blessed gold-red evening. Oh, why was the earth so beautiful, becrimsoned with dawn and twilight, if man's dealings with man were to make it a vale of scarcity, of tears, not even soft tears? Destroying of Bastilles, discomfiting of Brunswicks, fronting of principalities and powers, of earth and Tophet, all that thou hast dared and endured, it was for a republic of the cabaret saloons. Patience, thou must have patience. The end is not yet. End of Book 7, Chapter 6. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle. Volume 3, The Guillotine. Book 7, Vendémiaire. Chapter 7, The Whiff of Grapeshot. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 7, The Whiff of Grapeshot. In fact, what can be more natural, one may say inevitable as a post-sansculotic transitionary state, than even this? Confused wreck of a republic of the poverties which ended in reign of terror is arranging itself into such composure as it can. Evangel of Jean-Jacques and most other evangels becoming incredible, what is there for it but return to the old evangel of Mammon? Contrat social is true or untrue, brotherhood is brotherhood or death, but money always will buy money's worth. In the wreck of human dubitations, this remains indubitable, that pleasure is pleasant. Aristocracy of feudal parchment has passed away with a mighty rushing, and now by a natural course we arrive at aristocracy of the money bag. It is the course through which all European societies are at this hour travelling. Apparently a still baser sort of aristocracy, an infinitely baser, the basest yet known. In which, however, there is this advantage, that, like anarchy itself, it cannot continue. Hast thou considered how thought is stronger than artillery parks, and were it 50 years after death and martyrdom, or were it 2,000 years, rights and unrights, acts of parliament, removes mountains, models the world like soft clay? Also how the beginning of all thought worth the name is love, and the wise head never yet was without first the generous heart. The heavens cease not their bounty. They send us generous hearts into every generation. And now what generous heart can pretend to itself, or be hoodwinked into believing, that loyalty to the money bag is a noble loyalty? Mammon, cries the generous heart, out of all ages and countries, is the basest of known gods, even of known devils. In him what glory is there, that ye should worship him? No glory discernible, not even terror, at best detestability, ill-matched with despicability. Generous hearts discerning on this hand widespread wretchedness, dark without and within, moistening its ounce and half of bread with tears, and on that hand mere balls in flesh-coloured drawers, and inane or foul glitter of such sort, cannot but ejaculate, cannot but announce, "Too much, O divine Mammon, somewhat too much." The voice of these, once announcing itself, carries fiat and pereat in it, for all things here below. Meanwhile we will hate anarchy as death, which it is, and the things worse than anarchy should be hated more. Surely peace alone is fruitful. Anarchy is destruction, a burning up, say, of shams and insupportabilities, but which leaves vacancy behind. Know this also, that out of a world of unwise nothing but an unwisdom can be made. Arrange it, constitution, build it, sift it through ballot boxes as thou wilt, it is and remains an unwisdom. The new prey of new quacks and unclean things, the latter end of it slightly better than the beginning. Who can bring a wise thing out of men unwise? Not one. And so, vacancy and general abolition having come for this France, what can anarchy do more? Let there be order, were it under the soldier's sword. Let there be peace, that the bounty of the heavens be not spilt, that what of wisdom they do send us bring fruit in its season. It remains to be seen how the quellers of Sansculottism were themselves quelled, and sacred right of insurrection was blown away by gunpowder, wherewith this singular eventful history, called French Revolution, ends. The Convention, driven such a course by wild wind, wild tide, and steerage and non-steerage these 3 years, has become weary of its own existence, sees all men weary of it, and wishes heartily to finish. To the last it has to strive with contradictions. It is now getting fast ready with a constitution, yet knows no peace. Sieyes, we say, is making the constitution once more, has as good as made it. Warned by experience, the great architect alters much, admits much. Distinction of active and passive citizen, that is, money qualification for electors. Nay, 2 chambers, Council of the Ancients as well as Council of 500. To that conclusion have we come. In a like spirit, eschewing that fatal self-denying ordinance of your old constituents, we enact not only that actual convention members are re-eligible, but that 2/3 of them must be re-elected. The active citizen electors shall for this time have free choice of only 1/3 of their National Assembly. Such enactment of 2/3 to be re-elected we append to our Constitution. We submit our Constitution to the townships of France and say, accept both or reject both. Unsavoury as this appendix may be, the townships by overwhelming majority accept and ratify. With directory of 5, with 2 good chambers, double majority of them nominated by ourselves, one hopes this Constitution may prove final. March it will, for the legs of it, the re-elected 2/3, are already there, able to march. Sieyes looks at his paper fabric with just pride. But now see how the contumacious sections, Le Pelletier foremost, kick against the pricks. Is it not manifest infraction of one's elective franchise, rights of man, and sovereignty of the people, this appendix of re-electing your 2/3? Greedy tyrants who would perpetuate yourselves. For the truth is, victory over Saint-Antoine and long right of insurrection has spoiled these men, nay, spoiled all men. Consider too how each man was free to hope what he liked, and now there is to be no hope, there is to be fruition of this. In men spoiled by long rite of insurrection, what confused ferments will rise, tongues once begun wagging? Journalists declaim, your Lacretelles, Le Harpe, orators spout. There is royalism traceable in it, and Jacobinism. On the west frontier, in deep secrecy, Pichegru, D'Urcy trusts his army, is treating with Condé. In these sections there spout wolves in sheep's clothing, masked emigrants and royalists. All men, as we say, had hoped each that the election would do something for his own side, and now there is no election, or only the third of one. Black is united with white against this clause of the 2/3, all the unruly of France who see their trade thereby near ending. Section Le Pelletier, after addresses enough, finds that such clause is a manifest infraction, that it, Le Pelletier, for one, will simply not conform thereto, and invites all other free sections to join it, in central committee, in resistance to oppression. The sections join it, nearly all, strong with their 40,000 fighting men. The convention therefore may look to itself. Le Pelletier, on this 12th day of Vendémiaire, 4th of October, 1795, is sitting in open contravention in its convent of Filles Saint-Thomas, Rue Vivienne, with guns primed. The convention has some 5,000 regular troops at hand, generals in abundance, and a 1,500 of miscellaneous persecuted ultra-Jacobins, whom in this crisis it has hastily got together and armed under the title Patriots of '89. Strong in law, it sends its General Menou to disarm Le Pelletier. General Menou marches accordingly with due summons and demonstration, with no result. General Menou, about 8 in the evening, finds that he is standing ranked in the Rue Vivienne, emitting vain summonses, with primed guns pointed out of every window at him, and that he cannot disarm Le Pelletier. He has to return with whole skin, but without success, and be thrown into arrest as a traitor. Whereupon the whole 40,000 join this Le Pelletier, which cannot be vanquished. To what hand shall a quaking convention now turn? Our poor convention, after such voyaging, just entering harbour, so to speak, has struck on the bar, and labours there frightfully, with breakers roaring round it, 40,000 of them, like to wash it and its sea cargo and the whole future of France into the deep. Yet one last time it struggles, ready to perish. Some call for Barrard to be made commandant. He conquered in Thermidor. Some, what is more to the purpose, bethink them of the citizen Bonaparte, unemployed artillery officer, who took Toulon. A man of head, a man of action. Barrard is named commandant's cloak. This young artillery officer is named commandant. He was in the gallery at the moment, and heard it. He withdrew some half-hour to consider with himself. After a half-hour of grim, compressed considering, to be or not to be, he answers yea. And now, a man of head being at the centre of it, the whole matter gets vital. Swift to camp of Sabion to secure the artillery. There are not 20 men guarding it. A swift adjutant, Murat is the name of him, gallops, gets thither some minutes within time, for Le Pelletier was also on march that way. The cannon are ours. And now beset this post and beset that, rapid and firm. At wicket of the Louvre, in cul-de-sac Dauphin, in Rue Saint-Honoré, from Pont-Neuf all along the north quays, southward to Pont-ci-Devant-Royal, rank round the sanctuary of the Tuileries, a ring of steel discipline, let every gunner have his match burning, and all men stand to their arms. Thus there is permanent session through night, and thus at sunrise on the morrow there is seen sacred insurrection once again, vessel of state labouring on the bar, and tumultuous sea all round her, beating general, arming and sounding, not ringing tocsin, for we have left no tocsin but our own in the pavilion of unity. It is an imminence of shipwreck for the whole world to gaze at. Frightfully she labours, that poor ship, within cable length of port, huge peril for her. However, she has a man at the helm. Insurgent messages received and not received, messenger admitted blindfolded, counsel and counter-counsel. The poor ship labours. Vendémiaire, 13th, year 4. Curious enough, of all days it is the 5th day of October, anniversary of that Maenad march 6 years ago. By sacred right of insurrection we are got this far. Le Pelletier has seized the church of Saint-Roch, has seized the Pont Neuf, our picket there retreating without fire. Stray shots fall from Le Pelletier, rattle down on the very Tuileries staircase. On the other hand, women advance dishevelled, shrieking, "Peace!" Le Pelletier behind them waving its hat in sign that we shall fraternize. Steady! The artillery officer is steady as bronze, can be quick as lightning. He sends 800 muskets with ball cartridges to the convention itself. Honourable members shall act with these in case of extremity, whereat they look grave enough. 4 of the afternoon is struck. Le Pelletier, making nothing by messengers, by fraternity or hat-waving, bursts out along the southern quai Voltaire, along streets and passages, treble-quick, in huge veritable onslaught. Whereupon, thou bronze artillery officer, "Fire!" say the bronze lips. Roar and again roar, continual, volcano-like, goes his great gun in the cul-de-sac Dauphin against the church of Saint-Roch, go his great guns on the Pont Royal, go all his great guns, blow to air some 200 men, mainly about the church of Saint-Roch. Le Pelletier cannot stand such horseplay, no sectioner can stand it. The 40,000 yield on all sides, scour towards covert. Some 100 or so of them gathered by the Théâtre de la République, but, says he, a few shells dislodged them. It was all finished at 6. The ship is over the bar then. Free, she bounds shoreward, amid shouting and vivats. Citoyen Bonaparte is named General of the Interior by acclamation. Quelled sections have to disarm in such humour as they may. Sacred right of insurrection is gone for ever. The Sieyes Constitution can disembark itself and begin marching. The miraculous convention ship has got to land, and is there, shall we figuratively say, changed, as epic ships are wont, into a kind of sea-nymph, never to sail more, to roam the waste azure, a miracle in history. It is false, says Napoleon, that we fired first with blank charge. It had been a waste of life to do that. Most false. The firing was with sharp and sharpest shot. To all men it was plain that here was no sport. The rabbets and plinths of Saint-Roch church show splintered by it to this hour. Singular. In old Broglie's time, 6 years ago, this whiff of grape-shot was promised, but it could not be given then, could not have profited then. Now, however, the time is come for it, and the man. And behold, you have it, and the thing we specifically call French Revolution is blown into space by it, and become a thing that was. End of Book 7, Chapter 7. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 7, Vendémiaire, Chapter 8, Finis. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 7, Chapter 8, Finis. Homer's epos, it is remarked, is like a bas-relief sculpture. It does not conclude, but merely ceases. Such indeed is the epos of universal history itself. Directorates, consulates, emperorships, restorations, citizen kingships succeed this business in due series, in due genesis, one out of the other. Nevertheless, the first parent of all these may be said to have gone to air in the way we see. A Babeuf insurrection next year will die in the birth, stifled by the soldiery. A Senate, if tinged with royalism, can be purged by the soldiery, and an 18th of Fructidor transacted by the mere show of bayonets. Nay, soldiers' bayonets can be used a posteriori on a senate, and make it leap out of windows, still bloodless, and produce an 18th of Brumaire. Such changes must happen, but they are managed by intriguings, caballings, and then by orderly word of command, almost like mere changes of ministry. Not in general by sacred rite of insurrection, but by milder methods, growing ever milder, shall the events of French history be henceforth brought to pass. It is admitted that this directorate, which owned at its starting these three things, an old table, a sheet of paper, and an ink bottle, and no visible money or arrangement whatever, did wonders, that France, since the Reign of Terror, hushed itself, has been a new France, awakened like a giant out of torpor, and has gone on in the internal life of it with continual progress. As for the external form and forms of life, what can we say except that out of the eater there comes strength, out of the unwise there comes not wisdom? Shams are burnt up, nay, what as yet is the peculiarity of France, the very cant of them is burnt up. The new realities are not yet come. I know, only phantasms, paper models, tentative prefigurements of such. In France there are now 4 million landed properties. That black portent of an agrarian law is, as it were, realized. What is still stranger, we understand all Frenchmen have the right of duel, the hackney coachman with the peer, if insult be given, such is the law of public opinion. Equality, at least in death. The form of government is by citizen king, frequently shot at, not yet shot. On the whole, therefore, has it not been fulfilled what was prophesied, ex post facto indeed, by the arch-quack Cagliostro or another? He, as he looked in rapt vision and amazement into these things, thus spake. "Ah, what is this? Angels, Uriel, Anachiel, and the other 5, pentagon of rejuvenescence, power that destroyed original sin, earth, heaven, and thou outer limbo, which men name hell. Dost the empire of imposture waver? Burst there in starry sheen updarting, light rays from out its dark foundations, as it rocks and heaves, not in travail throes, but in death throes. Yea, light rays piercing clear, that salute the heavens. Lo, they kindle it, their starry clearness becomes as red hellfire. Imposture is in flames, imposture is burnt up, one red sea of fire, wild billowing enwraps the world, with its fire tongue licks at the very stars. Thrones are hurled into it, and Dubois mitres, and prebendal stalls that drop fatness, and ha! What see I? All the gigs of creation, all. Woe is me! Never since Pharaoh's chariots in the Red Sea of water was there wreck of wheel vehicles like this in the sea of fire. Desolate as ashes, as gases, shall they wander in the wind. Higher, higher yet flames the fire sea, crackling with new dislocated timber, hissing with leather and prunella. The metal images are molten, the marble images become mortar lime, the stone mountains sulkily explode, respectability with all her collected gigs inflamed for funeral pyre, wailing, leaves the earth, not to return save under a new avatar. Imposture, how it burns through generations, how it is burnt up for a time. The world is black ashes which, when will they grow green? The images all run into amorphous Corinthian brass, all dwellings of men destroyed, the very mountains peeled and riven, the valleys black and dead. It is an empty world. Woe to them that shall be born then. A king, a queen, me, were hurled in, did rustle once, flew aloft, crackling like paper scroll. Iscariot Egalite was hurled in, thou grim Delaunay with thy grim Bastille. Whole kindreds and peoples, 5 millions of mutually destroying men. For it is the end of the dominion of imposture, which is darkness and opaque fire damp, and the burning up with unquenchable fire of all the gigs that are in the earth. This prophecy, we say, has it not been fulfilled? Is it not fulfilling? And so here, O reader, has the time come for us two to part. Toilsome was our journeying together, not without offence, but it is done. To me thou wert as a beloved shade, the disembodied or not yet embodied spirit of a brother. To thee I was but as a voice. It was our relation a kind of sacred one, doubt not that. Whatsoever once sacred things become hollow jargons, yet while the voice of man speaks with man, hast thou not there the living fountain out of which all sacrednesses sprang and will yet spring? Man by the nature of him is definable as an incarnated word. Ill stands it with me if I have spoken falsely. Thine also it was to hear truly. Farewell. End of Book 7, Chapter 8. End of The French Revolution, A History by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3.